Ralph. All right, so we're here. You can't tell anybody where we're at. It's so secretive. You know how these NDPs are. They don't want to tell anybody where they're at. So we're going to sneak into this facility, this unnamed facility here in Kentucky. That's all we can tell you is that it's Kentucky. So we've got a secret meeting with one of the newest NDP producers of whiskey here in Kentucky. It's phenomenal. We're going to sneak inside this building. Hopefully we can get in. Okay, follow us. Come on. Let's go. It's locked. Oh, shoot. How are we going to get in? I don't know. Oh, wait, here comes Bill. Hey, y'all, Jeremy James here, the Bourbon Realtor, coming at you for Barstools Bourbon. Got Ralph down here on the side, the executive bourbon steward. Today, we are at an undisclosed location, which is literally written all over the building, with two of our favorite NDPs, non-distilling producers, Bob D'Antoni and Bill Straub with Foregate. So we've got you here, and we got you pinned in, so now you can't get away. So we've got you as long as we want. One of the first questions I always like to do is ask what got you all started, other than just a love of whiskey and bourbon and everything else. What got you started to bring us Foregate?
Well, I'll start in the beginning real quick, and then I'll turn it over to Bill. But I was doing 3 different financial projects with my own consulting firm. To Kelvin Cooperage, and for both the brothers there, Kevin and Paul McLaughlin. And Bill wanted to come down and do an article for his blog, which is Modern Thirst. And so I got him to come down, and they gave us a tour and everything. Bill wrote the article for Modern Thirst. And then it was about a year later, maybe 15 months later, he called me up and asked me if I wanted to do a whiskey brand with him. And so I'll let him follow from them.
That's pretty much it. I'd been blogging since I think 2014, I guess,
right.
and we kind of started early on in the bourbon boom, so we were very lucky in timing.
Yeah.
We had a lot of people they would hire us to help them do their barrel picks. So that was a kind of a new thing, and liquor stores didn't know how to do it.
Right.
Didn't know what they were doing, so we did a lot of that. I got hired 3 different times by some of the national brands to help them kind of strategize and then blend and launch new labels. And I got very tired of giving them my 2 cents and them going different directions. I say that as a joke, but it kind of was that way. They had a specific idea in mind, but in my mind, if they just stopped caring about the numbers, they would have a much more successful launch of whatever brand they were doing. So I started thinking, I had just met Bobby. We had gone down and seen Kelvin Cooperage. I saw these great casks from all around the world. Yeah. They might only have 10 or 12 of them, and the big guys don't care about 10 or 12 casks.
Right.
They just don't. But I kept thinking, if we just did this on a small scale and we could go in and just play around like a kid's in a candy store, you could have a blast here. You could put out some really great product. So that's kind of what we did. I called up Bobby, and I'd barely gotten out the sentence of, would you like to? And he said, I'm quitting my job. Let's do it.
It's usually not that easy. It's the all the years I put into it and then finally became a success, and it's never that easy.
Well, we then had to. It wasn't a matter of just starting it and then it happened. We had to go out and find investors.
Right. Sure.
So we did. We met with a lot of individuals, a lot of people. Some of them in the spirits industry and some not.
Yep.
And they trusted us. And I guess in 2018 we had raised the money that we felt we needed. Yep. And by 2019 our first batch was out.
Nice.
In April of 2019. So we're coming up on 3 years from batch 1.
Nice. And this is batch 18, right?
Batch 18.
If you look through the window, you'll actually see it being bottled right behind us. Cue the bottle pouring.
pour some out and we'll take a sip?
Sure. And we do want to, we're allowed to mention it. This is the first time that we have started bottling here at Bardstown Bourbon Company, and we're really thrilled to be here. It's a wonderful facility. Their staff is unbelievable. We're thrilled.
Well, the bottling facility here is absolutely gorgeous.
Stunning.
This is serious. You can go ahead and pour me a little bit more if you want.
Jeremy likes.
I'm what's called
Jeremy
a liberal
likes
pourer.
3 or 4
When-
finger
So when
food.
I did an interview with Mark and Sherry Carter over at Old Carter, at the first of the interview, there was only 3 bottles out on the table. And so I was pouring pretty decent.
Yeah.
By the time we finished, there were 6 bottles on the table, and I was like, we need to sit in the car for a little bit and eat a donut. So this is batch 18. Tell us about batch 18.
So this will be coming out in a couple of weeks. This is a 7-year Kentucky Straight Bourbon whiskey, and it's finished in cognac casks. So we have used cognac before with one of our Kelvin collaborations, but we blended it with some rum-finished bourbon of the same type. And in this case, this is straight cognac. I really like the cognac notes that it can add to bourbon. So we're pretty excited about this one. All of our initial tastes have been absolutely fantastic. We can't wait to get the bottles out.
Yeah, we've been tasting this with all of our friends and some of the folks down at Justin's House of Bourbon. Everybody really likes it. The feedback has been great. Some of the bloggers have been in town over the last 3 or 4 months when we already had this tanked, because Bill's the biggest fan of not overcooking any of our juice. And there's been a lot of people that have tasted this, and we've had the barrel samples, or the finished tank samples, I should say. And that's what we're drinking right now.
So
Nice.
now, you guys have to have a favorite of all your children that you.
I'm not supposed to say, but I do. So my favorite is the most recent batch we just released, 17, the Split Stave Rye. I love a spicy whiskey. I've always loved the higher rye bourbons.
Right.
That's a blend of bourbon and rye, and the bourbons are even high rye that we put
yeah.
in it. And then those Split Stave barrels, which we do exclusively with Kelvin Cooperage, they do it exclusively for us. They alternate between toasted and charred staves, and we use French oak for it, as opposed to American oak, which gives it even a spicier flavor, and it hits perfectly.
Yeah, all 3 of the bourbons were 75, 21, and 4. And then at the end, we threw in 5 barrels of our 95.5 rye.
Nice. One thing I always noticed with you guys, there was always that, it's not like a cinnamon heat. It's almost kind of like a jalapeno type of level heat that kind of finishes whenever I drink your whiskeys. I love it because it's just that lingering heat in your mouth that just kind of hangs with you from one sip to the next.
I think a lot of that is, we do everything at barrel proof. We don't add water to anything, and that's because we were whiskey geeks before we started a company. And I just prefer, if I'm going to buy a whiskey and it's going to cost me more than $50, I prefer it to be at barrel strength with minimal filtering. We use the least amount of filtering they allow us to use. You can always add water to it.
Yeah.
You can always add water to it, but you can't take it out. So once you've
Mark Carter calls it it's about economy. You're going to spend that much on your bottle, you might as well get all of it. I'm with him.
I'm all for that.
Yeah, we've
I just
never
like
added
flavor.
water. Yeah, we've never added water. Matter of fact, I was turning around to see what the proof is, because this one I used the labels that came in when I was out of town working this week. So
what is it?
It's 119.
119.2.
Saint. Okay.
Charente.
Charente. Okay, so we're probably it's French, right?
It is because of the cognac.
Cognac,
acid
there we
French.
go, okay.
And so the Charente is the name of the river that goes through downtown Cognac. And all the villages around it are named Saint something.
Nice.
And so I told Bill, I said, hey man, I came up with this name of Saint Charente, why don't we do it? And so I mess around with some of the names, I bounce them off Bill. If he thinks they're stupid, I table them for the next couple of batches.
Until you're rolling in.
Yeah.
Until he's not paying attention.
Yeah, but I bounce. If I'm doing it, I bounce them off him. He's giving me some good ones that we've got coming up that we're going to use on some really crazy oak that we're going to be buying from Kelvin Cooperage, and he put in a great name for that. But we're just kind of holding off.
Nice.
We've pretty much agreed on most of them almost right away, just like the name of Foregate.
Right.
We threw all the names in the hat, and Bill picked one of the names that I threw in there, which was kind of surprised me.
Yeah.
And, but it's turned out well.
He's kind of the batch name whisperer. We throw out these names, and I always kind of like, I like this one. Let's use this one, and he'll throw out another one. Oh, that's so much better than mine.
That's funny. So talk me through tasting notes on this one.
Well, typically, I don't really love to give tasting notes. We used
Right.
to do that in the start, but I like everyone to taste it for themselves. I don't want to put ideas into people's head, but I can tell you what I get. I get, on this one, the bourbon itself is spicy. So one thing that we never do is we never want to, we call it overcooking, which we put it in those finished barrels until it covers up the flavor of the bourbon. Because if we don't like the whiskey, we're not going to use it whether we finish it or not. We won't buy it to start out with. So I want to taste that bourbon. So I definitely get those notes. There's a little bit of kind of brown sugar, a lot of rye, pepper, spice in this. And then cognac for me, I always get this kind of orchard fruit on the nose and kind of immediately when it hits your palate, almost a green apple or a pear.
Yep.
And I absolutely love that combination of the sweet corn and rye with that orchard pear and apple.
Almost like an apple bread with like a spicy apple bread.
I'm picking up on some of those cognac notes. Yeah.
And this is from one of our favorite heritage distilleries right here in Bardstown. We've bought a lot of their juice over the last year and a half. And another comment I wanted to add to you about when we started the company, when we found the first whiskey that was about 11 and a half years old, I texted Bill and I said, "You're not going to believe it. I finally found the juice for the first batch. It's 11 and a half year old Kentucky." He was so excited. He pulled over on the interstate coming home from Lexington, and he had to talk to me in the emergency room. And he goes, "What are you talking about? Where's the 11 and a half year old?" And I'm like, "Hey man, I just found it. I'm driving to Lexington to talk to the whiskey brokers and see about getting us some sample and see what's up." And
So why don't you turn around and come with me?
Yeah, so-
2 kids and a wife in the car. I go back to Lexington.
it was but it was that's how we launched it with that first batch, and we ended up buying that whiskey 3 times to launch Forgate.
Nice.
Yeah.
Nice. Well, I'll tell you what, I love it. I think my first taste of Forgate, we were it was about a year and a half ago, and we were heading to Savannah. My flight got delayed in Lexington, and it was like 6 a.m. flight, and it got delayed, and I'm like, well, shoot, now we've got to wait 3 hours. So airport time means nothing. Right. So the bar was open. I was like, shoot, I just sat down. Forgate was sitting there. I was like. I think
At the Lexington Airport?
Yeah.
Oh,
I didn't even know they had a
Yeah, it's there, and they had the outer loop, and I'm like, well, give me a pour of the outer loop, and that was my first sip, and I'm sitting there at 7 o'clock in the morning having a sip of Forgate, and I was like, that's not a bad way to start a vacation.
He's texting me. He's like, "Hey, you know what I'm doing?" And I'm like, "No, what?"
That outer loop orbit, that batch 2 was that's another one that Bobby wound up naming, but I had the perfect name for it. I've told this story a million times, so pardon me, viewers, if you've heard this before. When I don't really like orange curacao, and I don't like to use it as a finish on bourbon. So when we had blended the whiskey, we were working with William Hornaday at Kelvin Cooperage, and he said, "I want you to come check out these barrels. They were originally orange curacao barrels," and I immediately went, "No, don't want anything to do with them." He said, "No, trust me, come check them out." And they had been used for orange curacao and then gin. So unique. We went out and smelled these barrels, and they smelled just like orange tang. Everybody, if you're over the age of 30, you probably remember orange tang. When I was a kid, I remember my dad, we're both kind of amateur history buffs. He used to always say Tang was about to go out of business. They were about to discontinue it until they took it on the Apollo 13 mission in 1963. Not 13, but one of the Apollo missions in 1963. And I said, well, that's a Mercury mission. I'm sorry.
Right.
Mercury.
Yeah.
Mercury in 1963. I think John Glenn took it, or Alan Shepard, one of the two. Took it into outer space. It became really popular. And that was always a memory that stuck with me from my dad for some reason. So I said, Bobby, I've got the perfect name for this.
Yeah.
We're going to call it Mercury 63. So Bobby has the artist mock up the label. We send it in the TTB, and we get a reply back. Did you get permission from Ford?
Yeah.
And we said, what the hell are you talking about, Ford? We assume you have a 1963 Mercury.
Yeah.
And I replied back. I was like, you're out of your mind. This is about the Mercury moon space mission.
Right.
I said, oh, okay. A couple days later,
from
we get a
NASA?
reply back. Did you get a permission from NASA? And I was like, I immediately threw up my hands. I was like, I'm out. I want nothing to do with it. Throw it all away. Pour it down the drain. And Bobby was like, let's just call it Outer Loop
I
something.
said Outer Loop 63 for Kelvin Cooperage.
That's the
was
street
founded
address.
in 63. And because I was driving to Kelvin when he was telling me the story, I'm like, we're not going to spend 10 grand in legal fees and we're going to lose.
Right.
I said, let's just change it. And I'm looking at the exit sign because Kelvin's their address is Outer Loop. I said, why don't we call it Outer Loop 63? And Bill goes, let's call it Outer Loop Orbit. So
There you go.
So at least
So
we
we
get
got the
the reference to
Right.
something.
And that was the exact same time that Budweiser came out with their Discovery beer. Mm-hmm. And I'm like, okay, they're referencing it too, but because they didn't use it specific to the mission,
Right.
we got 86th and they didn't. So
Or maybe because Budweiser's huge and the TTV
And they just-
doesn't want to screw
Yeah.
with that.
Send them some nice little gifts along with the application and everything else. Yeah. I'm not going to say that happened.
Here are your glasses. I'm gonna let you do the duties
I'm telling you what.
of pouring yourself something.
See, like I said, I'm a liberal pour. I'm a full-grown man, so
We like it.
I enjoy a nice pour. So you all, you are not bashful about your cooperation and your partnership with Kelvin Cooperage.
We wouldn't be where we are without him.
So tell us about that relationship.
Well, I was friends with Kevin. Both of our sons played AAU basketball together, and we've been in basketball for so long. Now I got to be good friends with his wife and Kevin, and then one day, I asked them to come in and do some of these financial projects, and they basically said no. And then they were getting a lot of pushback on some barrel costs and that. And one day he called me up and said, "Hey, why don't you come down and talk to me and Paul, and see about getting involved with doing some financial work." So the first one went really well. The second one went even better. Then the third one was, all three of them turned out really good for both Kevin and Amy and for Kelvin Cooperage, and of course my small consulting company. And then when Bill and I were starting to do the company, he's like, "Hey, why don't we ask see if Kevin and Paul want to be involved?" And so I said, "Okay, I'll go down there and talk to him." And Kevin was kind of like, "Hey, we bought into so many different distilleries. He goes, we'll support you in any way we can. You can use our name, our logo. I'll get you all the cask." At the beginning, he's like, I'll treat you right with the cask. May not even charge you. Let's see if you guys can make any money and have a go at it. And he goes, "I'll even give you a phone number." So I got one phone number from him on who to talk to about buying barrels and buying whiskey. And and then I started calling around after I met that gentleman on the phone and talked to a bunch of women and men in the industry to source some of this whiskey. And from that one contact that Kevin gave us, it was probably about maybe 2 months later, I found that 11.5-year-old Kentucky straight bourbon whiskey.
Nice.
And it was on. So when we were selling the units too, we should probably note, a buddy of mine got in first in August. Then the other people started to fall in, and we just told them, we don't need any money yet until we find the first whiskey. Then we found that juice at the end of October, the beginning of November, I forget when it was, and then
Late October, yeah.
yeah, all these wires started hitting our bank account. I'm like, "Oh my God, this is crazy." And then I told Bill, I said, now we've really got to figure out what we're doing. And I said, and at this point, I really hadn't. I was doing a little bit of work for my consulting business, CMS, and Bill was still working full time. I'm like, And initially during the summer, I was asking him, who's going to make all the phone calls?
Right.
He's like, "Well, I got a real job." I'm like, "Well, I got a consulting firm, but somebody's got to make the calls." Mm-hmm. And then the money came in, and it's like when the wires hit, I'm like, we got to be accountable.
It's real now.
Yeah, we got to be
Yeah.
accountable for all this cash and all this capital. And so I basically stopped working on my company completely, probably right around Thanksgiving of 2018.
Right.
And then the partners were gracious enough to offer Bill and I consulting agreements to operate, manage, and to manage the performance of 48.
Nice.
So
We
that's kind
just-
of how I got going with Kelvin Cooperage.
Yeah.
And now it's just been, Kevin passed away, obviously, a couple of years ago. Paul's followed suit with his love and enjoyment of what we're doing at Forgate and how we're giving them some more exposure if they really need it, which I don't
Yeah.
think they do, but we give them as much exposure as we can.
Yeah.
We work with William Hornaday on all the batches. Matter of fact, we're filling some casks today that we sourced through Kelvin Cooperage, some sherry, Oloroso sherry rum cask.
Nice.
And then we're also filling some 3-char casks with some other whiskey that we're going to do a special batch for that Kevin McLaughlin named for us before he died. So
Nice.
we're working on those, and we're filling those after this interview today.
We really like to think of them as kind of, they're not partners of the company, but we really think of them as partners because they've been doing this for multiple generations. Yeah. No one knows more about what wood and specific, pre-used barrels does to the whiskey more than they do because they've tasted the before and after of literally probably thousands of companies, both Scotch and domestic, that use all of these barrels, be it cognac or sherry or wine, and they know what it does to the whiskey, and they know what more time, if it's an old barrel, a new barrel, if it's been seasoned or not seasoned, they know what it does to the whiskey. So we really lean heavily on them every chance that we get. So we let them taste our stuff, we let them suggest, we can get these barrels, maybe you should look at this. They've been invaluable to us, and we're just so thrilled to be working with them.
Yeah. Nice. So we just finished our whiskey of the year.
Right.
And I think you guys placed, because it was in a blind with committee of 3. Todd Ritter, I blame Todd Ritter because just whatever. But I think you guys came in about 8th out of 17 with some serious hitters. We had B-Tags, we had like everybody in there.
Yeah.
And it was the Kelvin 3, right? So it was Kelvin split stave. So what is a split stave? So I keep seeing that.
So that's I mentioned the batch 17 was my favorite, and the split stave was the first batch we did that was a split stave was batch 4, and the most of we'll send you a picture and you can pop it up there on screen. But for most everything we've done with them, we take casks that they've bought that are used, and they'll refurbish them, repair them if need be, and then we fill it with whiskey.
Nice.
But we wanted to give them a chance to show what they can do as a new cooperage.
No, we'll put some we'll edit some B-roll in. We're good.
No, we wanted to give them a chance to show off their skills as coopers, building new barrels. So we sat around a table and kind of came up with this idea. It started out as let's do some charred casks and some toasted casks and blend them together, and then just decided, I guess, on a inspiration that we're going to make the charred casks and toasted casks, and then we're going to break them all apart before we used them and put them back together, alternating toasted charred staves. Oh, wow. So you get the benefits of a double oak and a toasted in the same barrel. And it winds up tasting a little different than if you blend the two together, which is really interesting to us. But we've now released 3 different split staves. The last one being, we did a bourbon, then a bourbon, then a rye. Right. And the last one was a blend of bourbon and rye in the French oak cask. So we have a couple other ideas coming up we'll do at least one a year. It's probably going to become kind of a flagship whiskey that is available all year round going forward.
Gotcha.
As we expand, our distributors have asked for kind of a mainstay product from us, so that's what we're looking at the moment.
Yeah, so I mean that was one of the things when I look at I kept hearing split stave and whatnot, and of course, whenever I look on your website, I see this alternating barrel, which absolutely looks gorgeous. So many are using rolling in a wine barrel or something like that to finish it, and they're just doing a full dump, roll it out. But Kelvin is actually dismantling these barrels and then rebuilding them back
for us
before we've ever used them. So it's not a non-labor intensive product. It takes them a decent amount of time. They'll come in on sometimes they'll come in on a Saturday, and a few of them will literally just build our barrels. They're very labor intensive. Wow. But they're so unique. And just aside from the flavors, it's just such a neat visual. You can even go into Justin's House of Bourbon in downtown Louisville, and they have one cut in half as a display piece, and it's just so neat to see the inside, and it gives you an idea of exactly what we're trying to accomplish. Because those toasted staves, they give you that kind of marshmallow creme brulee, and then we've played around with lighter char and heavier char on the charred staves, and they give you so many flavors from coffee to chocolate. And it's just such a neat. I just love it. I love the idea of it. It's kind of our thing that we do, unique to us too. So
I like that. I know from my experience with Foregate and drinking Foregate, I haven't had a bad one yet. And I don't mean that in a bad way. I just mean it from the standpoint of every time I have Foregate, it's enjoyable. It doesn't matter which one it is. There's an enjoyability every time I have a pour of it.
Hey, well, thanks a lot. We appreciate
that.
Well,
it's the truth.
For me,
too.
you guys are some of the most underrated bourbons out there.
Yes, absolutely.
I think price point kind of gets in the way for some folks because a lot of folks like to be in that $60 to $75 range or below or whatever else. But as far as with an NDP and then doing the stuff that you're doing, I mean, there's certain costs that go into these things.
Sure.
And I see a whole lot of bottles flying off shelves that are priced right where yours is at, and I see secondary. Well, not even.
Yeah,
we'll just
don't go there. Don't go there.
That's a whole other program.
Holding back.
Anyway, but I think just a couple years in, you guys have got some serious products out, that have been really high quality.
The value's there.
Yeah.
Oh,
The
absolutely.
value is
Thanks.
there.
We appreciate it.
Yeah, we're spending a lot of money on the secondary cask, rebarreling,
Yeah.
taking it out of those secondary barrels. The trilogy batch that we did, we rebarreled it twice.
I tried to get Ralph to buy me the trilogy set for Christmas. he balked at it. I don't know what his problem was. I'm like, don't I do enough for you? What do you mean?
there's a lot going on in our batches, and Bill and I say all the time, we're trying to spend as much money as we can to deliver a premium product.
Yeah.
And
Well, I think you're doing a good
we're,
job.
we're
at
not
it.
we're not cutting any corners. So.
No.
Well, and you're not just rolling it. I mean, because a lot of NDPs, what we see, I mean, they'll either source them from major distilleries across the river, and they'll just slap a new label on it, add a markup to it, and put it out. And we were talking about it the other day, that we wonder how many times we've been drinking from different labels with exactly the same juice in it,
Right.
at different price points or whatever, and it's really kind of getting frustrating. So we got to the point. I even told him, I said, I'm getting to the point now with source stuff, unless the person who is picking the juice up is doing something extra, adding an artistry to the finished product like you guys are,
Right.
I'm just not interested.
Right.
I mean, anybody can just slap a new label on something that poured out of somebody else's barrel. That's easy.
Right, right. Well, and one other thing too that they're doing to it that Bill and I haven't done is they're adding about 30% water to it.
Right.
Yeah, if you're selling it at 90 proof or so.
Yes.
Like this is at 119. You go to those conversion tables, you're going to add 30% water to this. You drink a third of the bottle.
30%.
Yeah, you drink a third of the bottle, fill it up with water, and now you got 90% juice. And
Get me started.
we don't want to do that. So.
We're going to add in a hot take section.
Well, and the other thing is, Bill and I are doing relatively small batches. We're trying to get the batch sizes a little bit bigger as we've gotten into some more states over the last 6 months
Yeah.
and where we're going in the next 6 months. But the bottom line is we're not doing 10 and 20,000 bottles per batch.
Right.
Where you get a little bit more of the synergies on the pricing and the label and the glass and everything else
Yeah.
and the bottling. We can't go out and buy 100,000 labels of the
Right.
same thing because we're not producing that same product
Right.
over and over
Yeah.
again. So everything's a little bit different.
Yeah. So it's about that scalability.
Yeah,
Like you said,
sure.
you get to a certain amount, and it's just like all of a sudden you have people basically giving you stuff, just use our
Yeah.
stuff,
Right,
whatever.
right.
But when you're producing a new product every single time, it becomes a lot more difficult and labor intensive on your side because it's no longer just about math.
Right.
Right.
The big distilleries are able to look and you train anybody to run the formula.
Right.
And whatever comes out, it's a
Yeah.
consistent deal. It comes out and it goes. When you're doing what you're doing, this is going out finding the right barrels that you want. Then it's crafting what you're going to age it in afterwards, and that's a whole different ballgame.
Yeah.
Um,
Well, in all these labels, we've used the premium label to
right?
give our customers a vision of what we had, and every time we do it, all these are different plates that we're buying from the labeling company to do this with all the embellishments, the tactile,
Yeah, because
the
it's
embossed.
because it is.
Everything.
They're all embossed.
Everything's embossed, and then that's the sheen on top is the tactile.
Yep.
And then we've done this on the outside too. This is the first time that we decided to do something to the back label as well. We've been shooting bottles front and back, and so this time on these batches that we're bottling today, all the labels have the tactile and the emboss on the back as well.
Nice. That just adds a whole other level of quality to it. That because
It
goes on our
it's,
bar.
It's
We
a
just want it to be
simplistic
sexy.
quality, though. It's a simplistic quality. I mean, it's just, I don't know. It has an artistry to it. I mean, it's a beautiful label. It's simple, but yet it's complex too.
We kind of feel like no matter what we do to a label, it's not like this is going to become a $50 whiskey. I mean,
Right.
we have more than that in
Yeah.
liquid costs in the
Right.
bottle. So we figure if you're going to spend that much money, if it costs us 5 cents more a label, we'd rather you pick this up and it feels high quality.
Yeah.
We don't want you to pick it up and say, what is this cheap piece of junk
Right.
that I'm paying $180 for?
Yeah.
Right.
We would feel like we would be cheating the consumers on that.
Right.
And we don't need to do that.
Yeah, and it was even, I think maybe like the fourth or fifth batch, we added all the tactile and the emboss to the top of the
Yeah.
tack stamp. And we're already using, real mahogany, real cork, the best cork and mahogany that you can get. The corks come out of Portugal.
When I heard the guys over there cussing you about the labels and everything else, when your backs were turned, oh my gosh, no, I'm just playing. They did not.
I think it's Gorilla Glue on the back of that. As soon as these, if you'd been out there, as soon as these things touch the glass, they're pretty much
Done.
permanent.
Yeah.
And when this is our first time on these bottling lines, and it takes them a while to get everything set up perfectly. So for the first 100 bottles, they probably had 30 they had to pull off the line and scrape these labels off of them and run them back through. And I don't think they like us very much.
Yeah, so be looking for those. If you look to see, it's like the flawed penny, right? Oh, it's got the double stamp or whatever.
Yeah.
It's worth more.
It's worth more, yeah.
But I mean, that's the one thing. When I put your bottle on my bar and it stands next to the other ones, it just stands out. You've got a classic style to the bottle itself, but it looks clean. It looks classic, and I mean, it just looks high quality because you see so much that's out there, and it's just mass-produced, just stickers.
Thank you. Well, that's one thing that I told Bill when he asked me to do it. I said, we just got to say total premium and not cut any corners, and that's where we're trying to maintain it and going forward. I mean, we've secured so much juice now that the juice aspect for Foregate is really out of the equation for the short term.
Right.
Which our short term focus right now is probably the next 18 months to 3 years.
Okay.
We're good. Now we can really pick and choose what we want to do.
Nice.
We know that we've got enough quality whiskey and barrels. A lot of them are sitting right out there. And Bill and I are in Foregate Whiskey. We're in a good spot right now.
Good.
Really good spot.
So tell us, what do we have? What do we have to look forward? So this is 18. This is going to be coming out in a matter of weeks. We are midway through February. Is that where we're at? A little late February. So what do we have to look forward to? Not only this year, but future.
We have a lot of batches lined up. We're actually mapped out probably for probably a year and a half. We can pick and choose when we release certain batches, but we know what the batches are. Some of them are already tanked and ready to bottle. Biggest issue now, like everyone else, is supply chain. So we're waiting on glass to come in from Poland. But we're very excited. What we've really been focused on is we've been partnering with our distributors, Republic National. Outside of Tennessee, that's our distributor pretty much everywhere. And they've asked us to expand to 2 or 3 more states per year. So we're coming to Illinois this year. So Chicago, get ready, go Cubs.
I know I've got some viewers in Chicago.
Maybe I should have said go Cubs because there might be some White Sox.
I don't know. Are there any left? I don't know.
But and then we're going to follow suit in Colorado.
Nice.
Moving
out on 291 territory out there.
Well, we love those guys. I love their whiskey, so I'll be happy to be on shelves with them. I'll tell you that. So we're kind of looking at expansion, and because of that, we're trying to slowly amp up the size of our batches. It's going to take some time because, again, most of our stuff's already been planned out for 6 months or more. But we're gonna try to expand and have a few more bottles, and we'll try to do that. We may try to do that flagship release of a split stave.
So does that mean we're going to see scarcity of you guys around here? Please tell me no.
No, one thing we don't want to do is we don't want to cut off our current states.
No, definitely not. Stacy and Simone, those guys have been so good to us. The guys at RNDC Kentucky, they're they've been supporting us since day one.
Good.
None of it's going to change.
This is our home base. I'm not going to screw Kentucky.
We've got the allocations.
Well, see, Ralph lives in Ohio.
Right.
And so much
Sometimes.
Right.
Half the
Sometimes
time.
I live in
Half the time.
Well,
He's in transition. We'll just put it that way.
Transition to Kentucky.
He has an easier job getting stuff up there in Ohio than we do down here.
Right.
And that, to me,
Well, it'll be a long time before we make it to Ohio because that's a control state.
Yes, it is.
That's a little tougher.
That's
on
right.
Our end.
Keep it down.
good.
Yeah.
Keep it down here. Keep it down here.
Yeah, no, it's all good. It's
We'll
all
be having mules going the other way for once.
That's right.
So,
That's right.
Well, y'all, I really want to thank you. I think you have a great product. I truly do. Been a fan for a year and a half since that airport sip.
Right.
I mean, that's
Great.
It was awesome.
Thank
Loved it.
I have one question for Bill. I understand there may be another master blender in your family.
oh dear God. I think you guys are talking about Todd Ritter, my cousin-in-law.
Oh, is that who it is? Oh, so that's our connection. All right.
I understand
Yeah,
he's an award-winning blender.
Oh
From
dear
what,
God.
what
He has some
tells me.
T-shirts to prove it.
I think it was a photo with an enlarged head at one point, wasn't there?
Yeah.
I literally just saw Todd last night
Yeah.
at my in-laws' house, and he said hi to you guys. So he's a good guy, and he's
he's a
as
great
big a
guy.
bourbon fan as
Oh, yeah.
there
He's
is.
a great guy.
He was on our tasting panel. So,
Yeah.
I think he ranked you guys way low though. So I don't know what
Yeah,
that
he
was.
made probably
he owes me my
17
money back
on-
for
Yeah. His blending, Bill said, is when he takes the same batch and blends it in his glass. That's it.
There you go.
Yeah. No, that's
Todd's,
No,
Todd's
he's
a good,
a-
good guy, good friend of the show.
Absolutely.
Yeah, we
Yeah,
love him.
we really appreciate him. He's supplied us with a couple bottles. Of
course he has,
It
yeah.
was so funny. We had like 18 to 20 different bottles for our whiskey of the year.
Yeah.
And I think each of us brought about a third to the game.
Yeah.
It was like, okay, because none of us had all of them because
Right.
that's just the way it is.
Sure.
Unless you're just a megatator and you just fly that money out like crazy. We just brought everything together and split them up. Said, okay, here we go. Did blinds, ran them through, and we were thrilled to have you guys on. So
Yeah, thanks for having us.
you guys
Yeah,
have
no.
a great product.
Yes,
So
Thanks for coming
Thank
out.
you so much. Yeah.
thank you very much.
Thanks for running down here.
Oh, absolutely. We'll be glad to
This
come
is
down
fun.
here. You
Oh,
kidding me?
absolutely.
There's nothing wrong with this place down
Yeah.
here.
Yes. Nice.
Well, Bob.
Hey,
Bill,
thanks a million.
Thank
Appreciate
you
it.
much.
Thanks so
Thank
much.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.
Thank you guys.
Thanks, man. Appreciate it.
Thank you very
Thanks
much.
for having us on.
Oh,
Y'all, I'm Jeremy James, the Bourbon Realtor.
I'm Ralph Burgess, Executive Bourbon Steward, and I have the hat to prove it.
Don't overpay for whiskey. This has been Barstools and Bourbon. We'll see y'all next time. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Cheers.